Relax for a moment, not as an instruction from the outside, but as a remembering that rises from within you. Because relaxation is not something you do, it is something you allow when you stop arguing with life. Just pause right here, wherever you are, and notice that your breath is already happening without your permission, your heart is already beating without your effort, and the universe itself has not been waiting for you to figure everything out before continuing its magnificent unfolding. This alone is a clue, a quiet whisper reminding you that life has always been supporting you far more than you realized. There is a deep exhaustion that comes from trying to manage everything, from believing that you must push, strive, control, prove, and hustle your way into worthiness. Many people call this ambition, but underneath it is fear. The fear that if you stop, you will fall behind. That if you relax, nothing will happen. That if you let go, you will lose what little you think you have. Yet the truth is the opposite. The most powerful moments of creation have never come from tension. They have always emerged from alignment, from harmony, from a mind that has remembered its connection to the source of all things. You see, the universe does not respond to your anxiety. It responds to your consciousness. It does not listen to the frantic voice of lack. It answers the quiet certainty of alignment. When you are tense, worried, grasping, you are broadcasting a message that says, I don't trust life. And life, in its infinite intelligence, simply mirrors that back to you. But when you relax, when you soften your grip, when you allow yourself to breathe into the present moment, you are saying something entirely different. You are saying, I trust the process. I trust the timing. I trust myself as an expression of something far greater than my fears. Relaxation is not laziness. It is not giving up. It is the highest form of confidence. It is the state of being that says, I know who I am, and I know that what belongs to me cannot miss me. The river does not strain to reach the ocean. It flows, and in its flowing, it arrives. The sun does not rush to shine, it simply is. And in its being, everything grows. When you relax, you align with this same intelligence. You stop forcing and start attracting. You stop chasing and start allowing. There is a profound misunderstanding about how life works that has been passed down for generations. The belief that you must earn love, earn peace, earn abundance, earn approval. But what if none of this is true? What if you came into this world already complete, already whole, already deserving? What if your task is not to become worthy, but to remember that you always were? This remembering changes everything, because it shifts your identity from a seeker to a receiver, from a struggler to a participant in a divine unfolding. The ego, that small voice in the mind that believes it is separate, thrives on urgency. It says, hurry up, you're running out of time, everyone else is ahead of you. But the soul has no deadlines. The soul understands that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. It knows that what is meant for you is already on its way, carried by an intelligence that sees far beyond what your eyes can perceive. When you live from the soul, you no longer measure your life by external milestones. You measure it by inner alignment, by peace, by the quiet joy of knowing that you are in harmony with yourself. Consider how often you have tried to force connections, relationships, opportunities, or outcomes, only to feel drained, disappointed, or disconnected afterward. This is not because you failed. It is because those things were not aligned with who you truly are. The right people do not require effort. They arrive with ease. The right opportunities do not demand compromise of your values. They recognize you instantly. The right luxuries, the right abundance, the right experiences flow toward you when you are no longer using them to define your worth, but allowing them to be expressions of your inner state. When you relax, you stop asking, how can I get, and begin asking, how can I be? And in that shift, everything changes. Being peaceful invites peaceful experiences. Being loving attracts loving relationships. Being abundant in thought opens the door for abundance in form. This is not wishful thinking, it is the fundamental law of correspondence. As within, so without. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner consciousness, and no amount of external effort can override an internal belief system rooted in lack or fear. Relaxation is an act of trust, and trust is the language the universe understands. It says, I know that I am supported. And when you truly know this, you no longer cling to people who do not see you, situations that diminish you, or dreams that do not resonate with your soul. You allow what no longer serves you to fall away, not in bitterness or resentment, but in gratitude for the lesson it offered. You understand that endings are not punishments, they are redirections. There is a sacred timing to everything in life, and the ego despises timing because it cannot control it. The ego wants guarantees. The soul wants alignment. When you relax, you surrender the need to know exactly how and when things will happen, and you open yourself to something far more powerful, synchronicity. Synchronicity is the universe winking at you, showing you that you are on the right path, that invisible hands are arranging circumstances in your favor, that what you need will appear at precisely the right moment. Think about the moments in your life that felt magical. The times when things fell into place effortlessly, when you met the right person at the right time, when an opportunity appeared just when you were ready for it. Those moments did not happen because you worried enough or tried hard enough. They happened because, for a brief time, you were aligned, present, open, and trusting. The invitation now is to live that way more often, not as an exception, but as a way of being. Relaxing does not mean you stop taking inspired action. It means you stop forcing action that is rooted in fear. Inspired action feels different. It feels light, natural, energizing. It arises from intuition rather than anxiety. When you are aligned, you know when to act and when to wait. You are guided by an inner wisdom that is far more reliable than the endless chatter of the mind. This wisdom has been with you your entire life, quietly guiding you, nudging you, protecting you, even when you were not aware of it. The mind will try to convince you that relaxation is dangerous, that if you let go of control, everything will fall apart. But look honestly at your life. How much of what truly matters has ever been under your control? Did you control the moment you were born, the beating of your heart, the changing of the seasons, the rising of the sun? And yet, all of these things happen with perfect precision. Life is not chaotic at its core. It is intelligent beyond measure. When you relax, you stop resisting this intelligence and start cooperating with it. There is a gentleness to life that reveals itself only when you stop pushing against it. Like a butterfly that lands on your hand, only when you are still, the universe reveals its gifts when you are receptive. The right people are already finding their way to you, even now. Conversations are being prepared. Paths are being cleared. Doors are opening in places you have not yet looked. Your only task is to remain open, present, and aligned with who you truly are. Luxuries, too, are not something to chase or feel guilty about. True luxury is not excess, it is ease. It is the feeling of being supported, nourished, and valued by life itself. It is waking up without dread, moving through your day with a sense of flow, and resting at night with a peaceful mind. Material comforts can be beautiful expressions of this state, but they are never the source of it. When you stop trying to use things to fill an inner void, you discover that the void was an illusion, and the things you desire come naturally without struggle. Relaxation also invites healing. So much of your tension is not about the present moment, but about unresolved stories from the past and imagined fears about the future. The body carries these stories, holding on to them as tight muscles, shallow breath, and chronic fatigue. When you relax, you give your body permission to release what it no longer needs. You tell your nervous system that it is safe, that the battle is over, that it can return to balance. Forgiveness often arises naturally from this state of relaxation, not as a moral obligation, but as a practical choice for inner freedom. When you relax, you realize that holding on to resentment is like gripping a hot coal and expecting someone else to feel the burn. You see that forgiveness is not about condoning behavior, it is about releasing yourself from the burden of carrying the past into the present. As you forgive, you create space for new experiences, new relationships, and new possibilities to enter your life. The ego will protest and say, "But what if I get hurt again?" And the soul responds, "You will be wiser, not smaller." Relaxation does not make you weak, it makes you resilient. It allows you to move through life with an open heart and clear boundaries, trusting yourself to respond rather than react. When you are relaxed, you are not easily manipulated by fear or urgency. You choose from clarity, not compulsion. Living in this relaxed state also transforms the way you see time. You stop rushing through moments as if life were a checklist to be completed. You begin to inhabit each moment fully, discovering that the present is not a stepping stone to something else, but the only place where life actually happens. In the present, you are not lacking anything. In the present, you are whole. The future unfolds most beautifully when it is built on a foundation of presence rather than impatience. The soul understands that you cannot miss what is meant for you. This understanding brings a deep sense of peace. You no longer compare your journey to others or measure your progress by external standards. You honor your own rhythm, your own timing, your own path. You recognize that the seed does not compare itself to the tree. It simply grows according to its nature. In the same way, you are unfolding exactly as you are meant to, even if it does not always look the way you imagined. Relaxing also allows you to listen more deeply to others and to yourself. You begin to hear the subtle guidance that was always there beneath the noise of worry and expectation. This guidance may come as a feeling, a sudden insight, a sense of knowing without explanation. Trust it. The soul always knows the way, even when the mind is confused. When you follow this inner knowing, life becomes less of a struggle and more of a dance. The right people recognize this energy. They feel safe in your presence because you are not trying to use them to fill a void. You are complete within yourself, and from that wholeness, you share rather than demand. Relationships formed from this space are not transactional. They are resonant. They are based on mutual respect, authenticity, and growth. You no longer chase connection. You allow it to unfold naturally. As you relax into who you truly are, you also release the need to prove yourself. You understand that worthiness is not something you earn through achievement or approval. It is an inherent quality of your being. You are worthy because you exist. This realization is deeply liberating. It frees you from the endless cycle of seeking validation and allows you to live from a place of self-acceptance and compassion. Compassion naturally extends outward when you are relaxed within yourself. You see others not as obstacles or competitors, but as fellow travelers on their own journeys of remembering. You become less judgmental, more understanding, because you recognize the same fears and hopes reflected in different forms. This shift in perception changes your interactions, inviting more kindness, cooperation, and harmony into your life. The universe responds to this state of being with remarkable precision. Opportunities align with your values. Resources appear when needed. Support arrives in unexpected ways. This is not coincidence, it is coherence. When your inner world is aligned, your outer world follows suit. You stop swimming upstream and allow the current to carry you toward experiences that resonate with your true self. Relaxation also teaches you patience, not as passive waiting, but as active trust. You learn that some things require gestation, that forcing growth only leads to distortion. Just as a child develops in the womb according to a natural timeline, your dreams and desires are unfolding in perfect order. Your role is to nurture them with positive intention, clarity, and faith, not to pull them into existence prematurely. Faith, in this context, is not blind belief. It is a deep inner knowing that life is on your side. It is the confidence that comes from recognizing your connection to something infinite and benevolent. When you relax into this faith, fear loses its grip. You may still feel it arise from time to time, but it no longer dictates your choices. You acknowledge it, breathe through it, and return to trust. The more you practice relaxation as a way of being, the more natural it becomes. It is not something you force, but something you remember. You remember that you are not separate from the source of life, that you are an expression of it. You remember that you are here to experience, to learn, to love, and to create, not to constantly struggle against the flow of existence. And so, you relax, not because everything is perfect, but because you trust that everything is unfolding perfectly. You relax because you know that the right people are already finding their way into your life, drawn by the authenticity of your being. You relax because you know that the luxuries you desire, whether material or emotional, are natural byproducts of alignment, not prizes to be chased. You relax because you finally understand that you are not behind, broken, or lacking. You are exactly where you need to be. In this relaxed state, life becomes less about arrival and more about appreciation. You begin to notice the beauty that was always there, the small moments of grace that often go unnoticed in a hurried mind. You find joy not only in outcomes, but in the process itself. You realize that happiness is not waiting for you at some future destination. It is available to you now, in the simple act of being present and aligned. This is the quiet revolution, the shift from striving to allowing, from fear to trust, from ego to soul. It does not announce itself loudly or demand attention. It unfolds gently, steadily, transforming your life from the inside out. And as you continue to relax into this truth, you will find that life meets you with the same gentleness, offering you exactly what you need, exactly when you are ready to receive it. So relax, breathe, trust. The universe has not forgotten you. It never could. You are part of it, inseparable from its intelligence and love. The right people and luxuries are not something you must chase. They are already coming to you, drawn by the simple, powerful truth of who you are when you remember to let go and allow life to flow through you. And as you continue to relax into this remembering, something subtle yet profound begins to occur within you, almost like the quiet settling of dust in a room that has been stirred for too long. Your mind grows less noisy, not because you force it to be silent, but because it no longer needs to shout to protect you. The mind begins to trust the wisdom of the heart, and the heart, in turn, rests in the intelligence of life itself. This is not a dramatic transformation that demands applause. It is a gentle homecoming, a return to what has always been true beneath the layers of conditioning. You start to notice that many of the things you once worried about lose their emotional charge. Situations that used to trigger fear or frustration now pass through you like clouds across the sky. You still notice them, you still respond when necessary, but you are no longer entangled. You are witnessing rather than clinging, observing rather than resisting. This is the freedom that comes not from changing the world, but from changing your relationship to it. The ego, of course, will attempt to reassert itself. It may whisper that you are becoming complacent, that you are losing your edge, that without constant striving you will be overlooked or left behind. But these are echoes of an old story, a story rooted in scarcity and separation. When you listen closely, you can hear how tired that story sounds. You can feel how heavy it is to carry. And in that awareness, you are free to choose again, to return to trust, to return to ease. Ease does not mean a life without challenges. It means a life without unnecessary resistance. Challenges still arise, but you meet them differently. You meet them with curiosity instead of dread, with openness instead of defensiveness. You understand that every challenge is not an obstacle, but an invitation to deepen your alignment, to refine your awareness, to strengthen your connection to your inner guidance. In this way, nothing is wasted, everything serves. When you relax, you also give yourself permission to be authentic. You stop performing for approval and start expressing from truth. This authenticity is magnetic. It draws into your life people who resonate with who you truly are, not who you pretend to be. You no longer have to maintain masks or manage impressions. You simply show up as yourself, and in doing so, you create space for genuine connection to flourish. Genuine connection does not demand perfection, it invites presence. It asks only that you be real, that you listen, that you allow yourself to be seen without armor. When you are relaxed within yourself, vulnerability no longer feels like a threat. It feels like honesty. And honesty, when rooted in self-acceptance, is one of the most powerful healing forces available to you. As this healing unfolds, you may notice old patterns loosening their grip. Habits that once felt automatic begin to lose their appeal. Reactions that once seemed inevitable now pause, giving you a choice. This pause is a gift. In it, you can respond from awareness rather than conditioning. You can choose love over fear, trust over control, patience over urgency. Each choice, no matter how small, reinforces your alignment and deepens your peace. The world may not immediately reflect these inner shifts in obvious ways, but trust that it is responding. Energy moves before form appears. Seeds germinate underground long before green shoots break the surface. Your relaxation is creating fertile ground for new experiences, even if you cannot yet see them. This is where faith becomes practical, where trust is not a concept, but a lived experience. You begin to sense that life is collaborating with you rather than testing you. Synchronicities increase. Meaningful coincidences occur with surprising frequency. You encounter ideas, people, and opportunities that feel tailor-made for your current state of growth. These are not accidents. They are confirmations, gentle nods from the universe, reminding you that you are aligned, that you are listening, that you are allowing. Allowing is a powerful word. It implies receptivity, openness, and courage. It takes courage to allow because it requires releasing the illusion of control. Yet in that release, you discover a deeper form of security, one that does not depend on circumstances remaining fixed. You feel secure because you trust yourself to navigate whatever arises, guided by an inner compass that has never failed you, even when you doubted it. This trust extends to your desires as well. You no longer cling to them with desperation or define yourself by their fulfillment. You hold them lightly, with appreciation and curiosity. You recognize that desires are not demands, they are directions, signals pointing you toward experiences that support your growth and joy. When you relax around your desires, you remove the resistance that often delays or distorts their manifestation. Luxuries, when approached from this relaxed state, become expressions of appreciation rather than substitutes for self-worth. You enjoy them without attachment, savor them without guilt, and release them without fear. You understand that abundance is not about accumulation, it is about circulation. What flows to you can also flow through you, enriching not only your life, but the lives of others. This understanding naturally inspires generosity, not as an obligation, but as a joy. When you feel supported by life, you want to support life in return. You give not to prove your goodness, but to express it. You share not because you fear scarcity, but because you trust abundance. In this way, giving and receiving become two sides of the same movement, a continuous exchange of energy that sustains and uplifts. Relaxation also deepens your appreciation for simplicity. You discover that peace does not require constant stimulation or external validation. You find beauty in quiet moments, in nature, in stillness. A walk, a conversation, a breath becomes an opportunity to reconnect with the present, to remember that life is happening now, not in some imagined future. This presence enriches every experience, making even ordinary moments feel meaningful. As you live from this place, your sense of identity shifts. You no longer define yourself solely by roles, titles, or achievements. You see these as expressions, not definitions. At your core, you are awareness itself, observing, experiencing, learning. This awareness is not limited by circumstances. It is expansive, creative, and resilient. When you identify with this deeper self, you are less shaken by change and more open to growth. Change, in fact, becomes something you welcome rather than resist. You understand that stagnation is not safety, it is disconnection. Life is movement, evolution, expansion. When you relax into this truth, you move with change instead of fighting it. You trust that each transition is guiding you toward greater alignment, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. The past, which once held so much emotional weight, begins to soften in your awareness. You see it not as a series of mistakes or regrets, but as a collection of lessons that shaped your understanding. You forgive yourself for not knowing what you know now. You recognize that every step you took, even the painful ones, contributed to your growth. This compassion for your own journey frees you to move forward without carrying unnecessary guilt or shame. Forgiveness extends outward as well, not because others deserve it, but because you deserve peace. You release the need to replay old stories or seek validation through resentment. You understand that holding on to anger ties you to the very experiences you wish to transcend. In letting go, you reclaim your energy and redirect it toward creation rather than protection. Creation becomes a natural expression of your relaxed state. You create not to prove yourself, but to express yourself, whether through work, art, relationships, or simple acts of kindness. You contribute your unique perspective to the world. You trust that your contribution matters, not because it is grand, but because it is authentic. Life does not need you to be perfect, it needs you to be present. Presence also transforms the way you approach uncertainty. Instead of fearing the unknown, you become curious about it. You see uncertainty not as a void, but as a field of possibility. You understand that the unknown is where growth happens, where new experiences are born. By relaxing into uncertainty, you allow life to surprise you, to delight you, to expand you in ways you could not have planned. Planning still has its place, but it is guided by intuition rather than anxiety. You set intentions rather than rigid expectations. You remain flexible, responsive, and open to guidance. When plans change, you adapt without losing your sense of self. You trust that detours are not setbacks, but redirections towards something that serves you more deeply. This trust radiates outward, influencing how others perceive and interact with you. People sense your calm, your confidence, your groundedness. They feel at ease around you because you are at ease with yourself. This ease creates opportunities for collaboration, understanding, and mutual growth. You become a stabilizing presence, not because you have all the answers, but because you are comfortable with not knowing. Not knowing, when embraced, becomes a form of wisdom. It keeps you open, curious, and humble. It reminds you that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. When you relax into this mystery, you experience life more fully, with wonder rather than expectation. You allow moments to unfold without labeling them too quickly, without trying to extract meaning before it reveals itself naturally. As this way of being becomes more familiar, you realize that relaxation is not a temporary state, but a foundational orientation toward life. It is how you meet each day, each interaction, each challenge. It is the lens through which you see the world, a lens that softens edges and reveals connections. Through it, you see that you are never truly alone, that you are always supported by an intelligence that is both intimate and vast. And so you continue, not with urgency, but with trust. You continue knowing that what is meant for you is already unfolding, guided by a wisdom far greater than your conscious mind. You continue relaxed, open, and present, allowing the right people, the right experiences, and the right luxuries to arrive in their own perfect timing. You do not rush to meet them. You simply become the version of yourself that is ready to receive them. In this becoming, you discover that the greatest luxury of all is inner peace, the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and trusting life to meet you where you are. Everything else is an addition, a beautiful expression of a truth you already embody. And from this place, you live not as a seeker chasing fulfillment, but as a conscious participant in a life that is continually offering you exactly what you need to grow, to heal, and to remember the infinite potential that has always lived within you. You are not here by accident, and this moment is not random. Something within you already knows that what you are hearing is not information, but remembrance. Not something new to acquire, but something ancient to recover. Long before you learned your name, your roles, your wounds, your ambitions, and your fears, there was an awareness that simply was. And that awareness is still here, quietly observing, patiently waiting, never anxious, never in a hurry, never doubting its own worth. This is the part of you that does not chase, does not beg, does not strive. This is the part of you that attracts effortlessly, not by effort, but by alignment. We spend so much of our lives believing that fulfillment exists somewhere outside of us, just over the horizon of achievement, just beyond the next milestone, just past the next relationship, the next paycheck, the next moment when the world finally gives us permission to feel whole. And yet, the deeper truth, the one that gently dissolves the ego and awakens the soul, is that life is not responding to what you want. Life is responding to what you are, not what you say you want, not what you think you deserve, but what you are embodying at the level of consciousness. You see, wanting is often rooted in a subtle belief of lack. Wanting says, I do not have. Wanting says, something is missing. Wanting says, when this arrives, then I will be complete. And the universe, which is extraordinarily obedient, responds not to the words, but to the vibration beneath them. It hears the belief, not the desire. It responds to the identity, not the wish. And so it continues to mirror back experiences that confirm what you are convinced of inside, that you are not enough yet, that you are incomplete, that something outside of you must arrive before peace is possible. This is not punishment. This is not cruelty. This is love in its most precise form. Life is always teaching you who you believe yourself to be. When you look honestly at your patterns, the relationships that repeat, the obstacles that recur, the emotional reactions that feel automatic, you begin to see that they are not accidents, they are reflections. They are mirrors held up not to your circumstances, but to your consciousness. And the moment you stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? And instead ask, what is this revealing about what I am carrying within me? You step out of victimhood and into authorship. You move from reaction to creation. This is where true healing begins. Not in fixing the world, but in understanding the self. Not in controlling outcomes, but in clarifying identity. You are not your past. You are not your trauma. You are not the story you've been repeating to explain your pain. Those are experiences you've had, not definitions of who you are. And yet, when the ego is left unchecked, it clings to those stories because they provide familiarity. The ego would rather be familiar than free. It would rather be right than peaceful. It would rather protect an old identity than surrender to a higher truth. And so it whispers, "This is just how I am," not realizing that this sentence is one of the most limiting affirmations a human being can speak. You are not just how you are. You are how you have been conditioned to believe you are. The ego thrives on comparison, judgment, resentment, and fear because these keep attention focused outward. As long as you are measuring yourself against others, blaming circumstances, replaying old wounds, or anxiously projecting into the future, you remain disconnected from the present moment, the only place where transformation is possible. The ego is always either remembering or anticipating. The soul is always now, and in this now moment, there is nothing missing. This is perhaps the most radical truth you will ever encounter. Your worth is not negotiable. It does not increase with success or diminish with failure. It does not depend on approval, productivity, attractiveness, or usefulness. It is intrinsic. It is inherent. It is non-transferable. You were worthy before you accomplished anything, and you will be worthy even when you accomplish nothing at all. To understand, this is not arrogance. It is humility, because it acknowledges that your value does not come from the ego's efforts, but from the source that created you. When you begin to live from this understanding, something extraordinary happens. You stop trying to get love, and you start being love. You stop chasing validation, and you start radiating authenticity. You stop manipulating outcomes, and you start trusting intelligence far greater than the thinking mind. And life responds accordingly. You do not attract abundance by obsessing over money. You attract abundance by embodying a consciousness of sufficiency, generosity, and trust. You do not attract love by fearing abandonment. You attract love by knowing your own completeness. You do not attract peace by fighting anxiety. You attract peace by releasing resistance to the present moment. The outer world reorganizes itself around the inner state because the inner state is the cause and the outer experience is the effect. This is not philosophy meant to impress the intellect. This is a law as reliable as gravity. Think of your consciousness as a tuning fork. Whatever frequency you are vibrating at determines what harmonizes with you. When you are vibrating at fear, you attract circumstances that require fear. When you are vibrating at resentment, you attract situations that justify resentment. When you are vibrating at self-doubt, you attract obstacles that confirm it. And when you shift even slightly into trust, compassion, gratitude, and presence, life begins to introduce people, opportunities, and insights that align with that new frequency. This is why personal growth is never about becoming someone else. It is about unbecoming everything you are not. It is about shedding false identities, inherited beliefs, and conditioned fears that have obscured your natural state. The oak tree does not strain to become an oak. It simply removes what blocks the acorn from expressing its inherent design. In the same way, you are not here to manufacture greatness, you are here to allow it. But allowance requires surrender, and surrender is frightening to the ego. The ego equates surrender with loss of control, not realizing that control was always an illusion. You have never controlled the beating of your heart, the rising of the sun, or the unfolding of life itself. And yet, somehow, everything has continued. Life has been living you just as much as you have been living life. The moment you stop resisting this truth, you feel relief. The moment you stop arguing with what is, you experience grace. Forgiveness plays a central role in this awakening, not as a moral obligation, but as a practical necessity for freedom. Holding resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for someone else to suffer. It keeps you anchored to the past, replaying moments that no longer exist, draining energy that could be used for creation. There are no justified resentments because resentment only hurts one person, the one holding it. Forgiveness is not about condoning behavior. It is about reclaiming your own peace. When you forgive, you are not saying, what happened was acceptable. You are saying, I choose not to let this define my inner world. You are choosing alignment over attachment, freedom over familiarity. And as you release these energetic anchors, you may notice something remarkable. Your external circumstances begin to shift without effort. People change. Opportunities appear. Obstacles dissolve. Not because you force them to, but because the inner environment that sustained them is no longer present. This is the quiet power of inner work. It does not announce itself. It does not demand recognition. It simply transforms. Living in the now is not a technique, it is a recognition. The present moment is not something you enter, it is something you remember. You never left. Anxiety dissolves when attention returns to now, because anxiety cannot survive without a future to project into. Regret dissolves when attention returns to now, because regret cannot survive without a past to revisit. Peace is not something you find, it is what remains when the mind stops traveling. And in this stillness, you may begin to sense something subtle but profound. The intelligence that animates you is the same intelligence that animates everything. You are not separate from life. You are an expression of it. You are not a fragment struggling to survive in a hostile universe. You are the universe experiencing itself through a unique perspective. This understanding dissolves loneliness at its root. How can you be alone when you are made of the same substance as the stars? The soul always knows. Long before logic catches up, long before evidence appears, long before circumstances change, there is an inner knowing that whispers, this is the way. The challenge is not that the soul is silent. It is that the mind is loud. The ego demands proof, guarantees, timelines, and reassurance. The soul asks only for trust, and trust grows not through control, but through alignment. When you act from alignment, effort feels different. It is not forced, it is inspired. You are not pushing against life, you are cooperating with it. And when resistance falls away, synchronicity emerges. You meet the right people at the right time. You hear the right words when you need them. Doors open, not because you knocked harder, but because you were finally ready to walk through them. This readiness is not about worthiness. You were always worthy. It is about identity. Who are you being in this moment? A seeker who believes fulfillment is elsewhere, or a creator who recognizes it within. A victim of circumstance, or a conscious participant in the unfolding of life. A body with a soul, or a soul having a human experience. When you identify with the ego, life feels like a struggle. When you identify with the soul, life feels like a dance. The music does not always change, but your relationship to it does. And as this relationship shifts, you may notice that what you once desperately wanted loses its grip on you. Not because it was wrong, but because it was never the source of fulfillment you imagined. What you were really seeking was a feeling, peace, freedom, love, significance. And these were always available internally. The external goals were simply symbols the mind used to justify allowing those feelings. Once you realize you can allow them now, the chase ends. This is the paradox. When you stop chasing, things start arriving. When you stop needing, you start receiving. When you stop proving, you start attracting. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. So be peace, and peace will find you. Be love, and love will recognize itself in your presence. Be trust, and life will show you reasons to trust. Be gratitude, and abundance will multiply. This is not wishful thinking, it is spiritual physics. And remember, transformation is not a dramatic event. It is a gentle, moment-by-moment choice to return to truth, to notice when the ego tightens and to soften, to notice when fear speaks and to listen without obeying, to notice when the past calls and to remain present. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, you shift your frequency. Every time you choose compassion over judgment, you realign with your nature. Every time you choose now over later, you step into freedom. There is nothing you need to add to yourself to be whole. There is only what you need to release. And as you release beliefs, identities, resentments, fears, you may discover that what remains is not emptiness, but fullness, not weakness, but strength, not confusion, but clarity. This is who you were before the world told you who to be. This is who you are beneath the noise. And from this place, everything follows. And from this place, everything follows, not because you command life to obey you, but because you are no longer in conflict with it. When you stop arguing with reality, reality stops arguing with you. When you stop insisting that life be different before you allow yourself to feel whole, life gently rearranges itself to mirror that wholeness back to you. You begin to notice that effort transforms into intention. Struggle transforms into clarity. Control transforms into cooperation. The need to dominate outcomes dissolves into a quiet confidence that whatever unfolds is unfolding with you, not against you. This is not passive resignation. This is conscious alignment. It is the deepest form of power there is, the power that does not push, but attracts. Most people misunderstand attraction. They think it is about visualizing objects, repeating affirmations, or forcing optimism. But attraction is not a technique. It is a state of being. It is not about what you say to yourself, but about what you believe without words. It is not about convincing the universe. It is about becoming congruent with the truth of who you are. When your inner world is fragmented, when part of you wants and another part doubts, when part of you hopes and another part fears, you emit mixed signals. Life reflects that confusion back as delay, inconsistency, or resistance. But when your inner world becomes coherent, when your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs align with a deeper knowing, the signal becomes clear, and clarity is magnetic. This is why healing always precedes manifestation. You cannot create sustainably from a wounded identity. You can achieve, yes, but achievement without healing becomes another mask, another distraction, another attempt to outrun an inner emptiness that will not be silenced by success. True fulfillment comes not from adding more to your life, but from subtracting what is false. The ego resists this subtraction because it has invested heavily in the illusion of becoming. It tells you that you are a project, a work in progress, something to be improved, optimized, perfected. And while growth is natural, the belief that you are fundamentally incomplete is not. That belief is the root of suffering. It keeps you striving for a future self instead of honoring the presence of the self that already is. The soul, on the other hand, knows that growth is expansion, not repair. A flower does not bloom because it is broken. It blooms because that is its nature. In the same way, your evolution is not about fixing what is wrong with you, but about expressing what is right with you more fully. As you begin to live from this understanding, you may notice subtle shifts in how you relate to time. The urgency softens. The impatience loosens its grip. You stop asking, when will it happen? And start asking, who am I being while I wait? And in that question, waiting itself transforms. It becomes a sacred interval, not a punishment. A gestation period, not a delay. Nothing in nature rushes, and yet everything is accomplished. The seasons do not compete with one another. Winter does not apologize for resting. Spring does not demand proof before it blooms. Summer does not cling when it is time to let go. Autumn does not mourn what falls away. Each phase trusts the intelligence that moves it. And you are no different. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to become who you are becoming. This is why comparison is so corrosive to the spirit. When you measure your life against someone else's timeline, you disconnect from your own rhythm. You forget that growth is not linear, that awakening is not predictable, that transformation does not follow a schedule. Each soul unfolds according to its own design. And the moment you stop comparing, you reclaim your energy. Energy is precious. Where you place your attention determines the quality of your experience. Attention given to fear amplifies fear. Attention given to gratitude amplifies abundance. Attention given to judgment strengthens separation. Attention given to compassion dissolves it. This is not moral philosophy. It is energetic law. What you feed grows. What you starve fades. So ask yourself gently, without condemnation, where is my attention habitually resting? On what is wrong or on what is real? On what is lacking or on what is alive? On what has hurt me or on what is healing me right now? These questions are not meant to induce guilt. They are meant to invite awareness. Awareness is the doorway to choice. And choice is the birthplace of freedom. Freedom does not mean the absence of challenge. It means the absence of identification with struggle. Challenges will arise, that is the nature of form. But when you are rooted in being rather than becoming, challenges no longer threaten your identity. They become invitations rather than obstacles, teachers rather than enemies. Even pain, when met with presence, transforms. Pain resisted becomes suffering. Pain accepted becomes wisdom. Pain observed becomes compassion. And compassion, perhaps more than anything else, is the signature of an awakened life. When you recognize your own humanity with tenderness, you recognize it in others. Judgment falls away because you see yourself everywhere. Forgiveness becomes natural because you understand that everyone is acting from their level of consciousness just as you are. This understanding does not make you passive, it makes you peaceful. It does not make you indifferent, it makes you discerning. You learn to say yes without attachment and no without guilt. You learn to participate fully without losing yourself. You learn to love deeply without clinging. And as your relationships shift, so does your sense of self. You stop seeking completion through others. You stop outsourcing your worth. You stop asking people to fill spaces that were never empty to begin with. Love becomes an expression, not a transaction, a sharing, not a bargaining. This is when you truly understand that you are already enough, not as a concept, but as a lived reality. Enough not because you have achieved some standard, but because you are aligned with your source. Enough not because life is perfect, but because your relationship to life is honest. Enough not because nothing hurts, but because nothing defines you. From this place of enoughness, generosity flows naturally. You give without depletion. You serve without self-erasure. You create without attachment to outcome. And paradoxically, this is when life gives back most abundantly, not because you are trying to receive, but because you are open. Openness is the key. A closed heart cannot attract. A guarded mind cannot receive. A contracted identity cannot expand. When you soften, life enters. When you trust, life responds. When you allow, life surprises you. You begin to see that miracles are not violations of natural law. They are expressions of alignment with it. They occur not when you beg, but when you believe. Not when you force, but when you flow. Not when you demand, but when you surrender. Surrender does not mean giving up your dreams. It means releasing your grip on how they must arrive. It means trusting that the intelligence that placed the desire within you knows how to fulfill it in ways the ego cannot predict. It means letting go of the illusion that your limited perspective knows best. When you surrender in this way, anxiety loses its fuel, control loses its purpose, resistance loses its argument. And what remains is a quiet joy, not the excitement of getting what you want, but the peace of being who you are. This joy is not dependent on circumstances. It does not fluctuate with outcomes. It is not loud or dramatic. It is steady, grounded, spacious. It feels like coming home to yourself after a long journey of seeking. And perhaps that is what this life has always been, a remembering rather than a becoming, a return rather than a conquest, a softening rather than a struggle. You were never meant to attract happiness by chasing it. You were meant to embody happiness by aligning with your nature. You were never meant to earn love by proving your worth. You were meant to express love by recognizing it within. You were never meant to control life into submission. You were meant to cooperate with its intelligence. So rest in this knowing. Let it settle beneath your thoughts, beneath your habits, beneath your fears. Let it inform how you breathe, how you listen, how you respond. Let it guide you back to yourself again and again. Because when you change within, not by force, but by awareness, everything follows. Not because the world suddenly becomes perfect, but because you finally see it clearly. And in that clarity, you are free. This is emotional maturity. Not the absence of desire, but the absence of attachment. Attachment says, I cannot be okay unless this happens. Alignment says, I am okay, and I welcome what happens. From this place, gratitude becomes effortless. Not gratitude as politeness, but gratitude as perception. You begin to notice what is already working, already supporting you, already unfolding. You see that breath is a gift. Awareness is a gift. Existence itself is a miracle so ordinary that the mind overlooks it. Gratitude shifts your frequency instantly, not because it changes circumstances, but because it changes perception. And perception is reality experienced. Two people can stand in the same moment and live in entirely different worlds depending on what they are noticing. When you notice lack, life feels harsh. When you notice presence, life feels generous. Presence is the doorway through which everything meaningful enters. Creativity flows from presence. Love deepens in presence. Healing occurs in presence. You cannot heal yesterday. You cannot live tomorrow. You can only meet now. And now is always sufficient. Even when now includes discomfort. Discomfort is not an error. It is information. It is the soul signaling misalignment, asking for attention, inviting recalibration. When you meet discomfort with curiosity instead of resistance, it loosens. When you meet it with compassion instead of judgment, it transforms. Nothing in you is asking to be rejected. Everything in you is asking to be understood. This includes fear. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is simply the ego's attempt to protect an identity it believes is fragile. When you stop fighting fear and start observing it, it loses authority. You realize that fear is loud but not wise, insistent but not accurate, convincing but not truthful. Fear speaks in absolutes. The soul speaks in whispers. Fear demands certainty. The soul invites trust. And trust is not blind belief. It is experiential knowing. It is built each time you choose alignment over anxiety and discover that life holds you. Each time you release control and notice that things still work out, sometimes better than you imagined. Each time you listen inward and are guided accurately, slowly, confidence replaces doubt. Not confidence in outcomes, but confidence in yourself. Confidence that whatever arises, you can meet it with presence. Confidence that you do not need to know everything in advance to move forward. Confidence that your worth is not fragile. This confidence is quiet. It does not need to announce itself. It does not compete. It does not seek validation. It simply stands. And from this inner stability, outer stability emerges. Not because life becomes predictable, but because you become adaptable, flexible, resilient, rooted. You realize that nothing external can give you what you refuse to allow internally. And nothing external can take from you what you are no longer outsourcing. This is sovereignty. Not dominance, but self-ownership. The recognition that while you cannot control life, you can choose how you relate to it. And that choice shapes everything. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. So be patient if things are shifting slowly. Consciousness evolves in layers. Identity softens in waves. Integration takes time. There is no rush. Awakening is not a race. It is a return to simplicity, a return to presence. A return to truth. And truth, when fully embodied, changes everything without force, without struggle, without noise. Just by being